As a child of the 90s, my early youth existed in the transition years of the technological revolution brought on by the proliferation of the internet and cell phones. The latest and greatest of the tech world wasn't confined to schools and arcades, it was in my living room, recording shows on VHS, writing friends' phone numbers down in the address book, renting movies from the local rental chain are my cultural touchstones. For me, the place I went to when I wanted to watch a movie was Hometown Video. There were a few stores across New Jersey, with one being a mere 2-minute drive from my childhood home. I can say with great confidence that over the years I probably scanned its aisles hundreds of times. Often that led me to one section in particular, one franchise that was my first real obsession with Japanese media: Godzilla. And here's the point where I say I don't like the Polygon picture-produced Gen Urobuchi-written Godzilla films. We are 2 of 3 deep, and with pure confidence I state both the first film, Planet of the Monsters, and the second, City on the Edge of Battle, are bad. Weighed down by 80% scientific and lore-oriented jargon, and lacking in character, spectacle, fun, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, most of that jargon and lore is pretty terrible too. In this rendition of Godzilla, humanity is engaged in a battle to retake Earth after 20,000 years of living in space. The 2 alien races that came to Earth at the time of humanity's exodus have staked their faith in the severely less developed beings, having suffered similar fates on their home planets. These aliens are not really all that imaginative. Not only do they just look like people, they fall under many of the same tropes of popular fictitious races. There are the spiritual Exif that are benevolent space elves. Meanwhile, the Bill Salato are militaristic, logic trumps all folks. Then the humans who are passionate, where a strong sci-fi universe like Mass Effect takes similar core concepts and expands by having the individuals of every race be actual individuals. These films present the broad stroke tropes laid upon angry and vengeful anime boy, cute subordinate love interest girl, and other such fascinating stock parts. It isn't like the writer Urobuchi isn't capable of crafting compelling sci-fi worlds with characters worth following as they dole out a bunch of proper nouns. Season 1 of Psycho-Pass being a prime example of such. It just doesn't happen here, possibly because of the time constraints introduced by the very nature of the films, or maybe that was the plan all along. There are examples of humanoid alien races throughout the Godzilla franchise, like the beings of Black Hole Planet 3 of the first Mechagodzilla movie. They too are not terribly imaginative, after all it's just some light makeup or a rubber mask, but these films are obviously aiming for different targets. One is a mildly goofy kaiju film of the 70s looking for blockbuster appeal and produced with cheap and practical special effects. The other is a fully CG film of the modern era with clear intent on setting up a serious and fairly complex sci-fi narrative. Between all the technobabble and more original lore are hints of what's to come via winks and nods to longtime Godzilla fans. The get hyped moments that you'd see in something like the recent trailer of Godzilla King of the Monsters. Moments like the shadow of Rodan gliding over a European city as it is eviscerated by heat. Or when Ghidorah spreads its wings amid a giant storm. What City on the Edge of Battle presents is more subtle, but the end goal is clear and very similar. Getting the Godzilla fandom all taut and dripping with anticipation at the mere mention of a famous kaiju. And it doesn't really work, because outside of the pure hype machines that trailers are meant to be, name drops in a bad film series just makes me wish I was watching something more enjoyable. When so many of the monsters look like this, and are occupying a bland jungle that looks like this, it's hard to have much faith in what's to come. Clearly, these twin girls who speak telepathically and have some genetic material resembling insects are the Mothra twins. The Exif that the so boring I don't care to remember his name protagonist befriends mentions a terror far greater than even Godzilla in the far reaches of space, definitely Ghidorah. Well, that really doesn't do much for me. Unlike Charles Dance looking all Tywin Lannister-y and uttering the line, "Long live the king."
Long live the king.
I'm not the biggest fan of Polygon pictures, I admit that. I found Knights of Sidonia to be a hard watch, with its low frame count cast and incredibly washed out visuals attempting to hide a prevailing rough appearance. They've improved over the years, and barring a few hiccups, I think 2017's Blame is a genuinely well shot and animated CG flick. These Godzilla films are a major step back, with each the most noteworthy stuff is saved for the final act and preceded by just a lot of standard shots, more in service of the plot than dressing up any of the accoutrements. A constant hazy blue-gray with brief interludes of firelit caves and computer terminals. Even Godzilla is underwhelming, relying more on the meaningless jargon of the film than actual well-sequenced moments of destruction. This Godzilla may be 300 meters tall, but Shin's 118 meter Godzilla packs far more punch. If I didn't know better, I'd call Godzilla Planet of the Monsters and City on the Edge of Battle offensively bad films, to a person who owned King Kong vs. Godzilla on VHS. To someone who has seen Mechagodzilla duke it out dozens of times. Lord knows how often I've heard the opening credits of the Hedorah film. Dig through my parents' attic and you'll likely find several Godzilla variants along with a Ghidorah that is missing a head. A Mechagodzilla that when you press the button on its chest, it sounds like someone is forcefully dunking its paint-chipped silver dome in several feet of water due to the incalculable amount of button presses from my childhood hands. I love Godzilla. I don't love these films. And that's okay? Yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with that. Frothing with rage about childhood loves not having the same meaning to your adult self is all too common a stance. I'm not solely pointing to those petitioning for a remake of Star Wars Episode 7, though they certainly deserve your ire. The amount of vitriol among all fandoms makes me less interested in being a part of any community, thinking that every mistake with a piece of media's development is a personal affront that is then spurred on by the cults of social media. Far too often, many of us forget that we're talking about attempts at communication, because that's what all media is. Like many human endeavors, communication or not, there are numerous reasons why we may not connect. As we age, our tastes evolve. Maybe 20 years ago, in the height of my Godzilla obsession, I'd be overjoyed with Polygon Pictures' outings, possessing the same love I had for the Roland Emmerich-directed Zilla of 1998. Now I think back on it and am not terribly keen on rewatching this.
Ah! Not this way! Not that way!
So you know what I'll do with this disappointment after putting it into video form, except that not every Godzilla film is going to be for me at any given moment. No matter how much I once enjoyed watching some guy in a rubber lizard getup stomp around on a bunch of cheap toys. Patreon, I have one of those. Support it if you'd like to see these videos keep on coming. Otherwise, be sure to like, subscribe, all that nonsense. It is greatly appreciated as well.